everybody. On the eve of the Queen's funeral, I'm gonna ask a question. How long do you think Charles's reign is gonna last? Even as the crowds are pleased to see him, accepting him, sympathetic towards the loss of his mother, the crowds are embracing Charles right now. But how long is it going to last? His reign has begun already, steeped in controversy for a long, long time now. There's been a great portion of people around the world that are calling for some definite action towards Harry and Meghan, and indeed toward Andrew as well, in terms of rights of rule, things like the counselors of state, the question of titles given perhaps to the children of Harry and Meghan, or titles being taken away from everyone. The line of succession is another big issue, and people are very passionate about these kinds of things. Indeed, this has been going on for a long time, and as we see, particularly with Meghan and Harry, they're a problem that just is not gonna go away. Um, Andrew as well is a bit of a thorn in the side of the monarchy, and even during this funeral, he manages to stir up a little bit of trouble, a little bit of controversy himself. Well, we might have an answer to our question. How long might this last? How long might Charles retain the public trust? In 2014, a play was produced and performed in England called King Charles III. In 2017, it was made into a movie that was written as a movie, but those moments where the actor will come and do an aside and just talk to the screen, a soliloquy. In the movie, those are done like it would be during a play, sort of, and in a poetic sort of sonnet style. Uh, there's not a lot of that. It's not terribly distracting. They're sprinkled throughout the movie, but it kind of makes it interesting and reminds you that it was originally a play. Well, that in the movie, it opens as Charles is walking behind the Queen's coffin. It's at her funeral, going into the cathedral. This is how it opens. Of course, William and Kate are the new Prince and Princess of Wales. Camilla's by Charles' side. And we've got a very angry Harry. He's not happy. I mean, we all knew in real life he hasn't been happy being a member of the monarchy for about 20 years. He's always kind of had a secret wish to get out, and they kind of followed this attitude in the opening of the movie as well. So there's already some friction there. Well, as it turns out, as subtext to the movie, you do have the Harry story, and it's kind of eerie. Here we go. His After the funeral, and everybody's in mourning to cheer him up. Some of his buddies decide to take him out for a couple of drinks, and don't you know they set him up with a blind date with none other than a black activist, socialist girl. who's quite outspoken. And at first, Harry doesn't want to have a whole lot to do with her. They sit and talk and sit and talk. He ends up going home with her. Things develop, and over a period of time, as a subtext to what's going on in the main plot, which we'll get to in a minute, um, she kind of fills his head with all this socialist, anti monarchist kind of stuff. And he already sort of had a desire to exit from the royal family anyway. So she's filling his head, and oh, we should be together. He's torn between what he sees in her and the kind of utopia she's selling him, and his duty to the crown. You know, kind of very similar to what's happened with Meghan and Harry's love story. It's just funny. I just find it interesting the way these things happen. You can call it predictive programming. You can call it forecasting the future, just a silly quirk. How could they know? It's just fun. So so he's quite torn. Now the main plot of the movie, and I'm not going to spoil anything if everything if you want to look it up. Um there's a bill in Parliament for a certain piece of legislation. I won't go into it all in case you want to watch the movie. Anyway, a very good portion of the population is for this legislation, but there's also worries about it as well. It's kind of a double edged sword kind of a thing, a wedge issue that stirs up controversy amongst the public. The government is heavily, heavily pushing for this piece of legislation, and in the movie, King Charles is completely against it. Um, and so the majority of the population is with the government. The majority of the population wants this piece of legislation and sees it as a good thing. And the downside, they're kind of playing down. They want this legislation. Well, Charles is absolutely against it. He will not sign the papers. And so, I guess to put pressure on the king, the government starts leaking things in the press about this, that Charles is in direct um, dispute with his government. Makes the papers. It's a big deal, and this causes a real groundswell of public disapproval for the king, to the point where in the movie, at sort of the really building kind of moment, in one of the scenes, they look out on the mall, and the monument in the mall outside of Buckingham Palace, and there's just a sea of people protesting, trying to tell the king, do the right thing, sign the. I mean, in the movie, it got this bad. And he would not do it. The disapproval of the public for the king has put the monarchy in complete crisis. The disapproval the king has for this bill that his government is trying to push him to approve has caused a government crisis. All of which, when you put it all together, becomes a constitutional crisis. Meanwhile, William and Kate are kind of watching this happen. William wants to exert his power. He's trying to influence the king. Charles will have none of it. So William in the movie kind of goes behind Charles's back and goes to the government, and they choose to push him out. One scene in the movie, William meets his father in his office at Buckingham Palace, and there's crowds of jeering protesters outside the window, and William presents him with letters of abdication and said, "You must abdicate." Charles doesn't want to, he refuses to. Eventually, he is forced to. Meanwhile, underneath, you've got the subtext of the Harry and Meghan. Well, her name's not Meghan in the movie, I forget what it is. But Harry and his activist black girlfriend in the background, and he decides he wants to leave. He wants to go with her in the midst of this giant political royal crisis. And of course, Charles tells him, no, no, you can't do that, kind of a thing. So there's controversy swirling every which way. Um, and William has to come in and force his father out and save the day, exert his power. In the end, Harry gets his way and he gets the blessing of the crown so he can start his new life with his activist girlfriend. Um, but William exerts his power, he exerts his influence, and he ousts his own father. Far fetched. Oh, it was just a play. Oh, it was just a movie. But look what's happening now. There is so much controversy over the lack of action against Andrew, over the lack of action against Harry and Meghan, questions about Counselor of State status, question about should they be able to keep their title, should they be able to use their title, they be stripped of everything. Now, with him ascending to king, do the children get titles? What titles do they get? Are they allowed to use them? Um, all of these questions, and a lot of people have very strong ideas about it. Coincidentally, perhaps, there is a bill in the British government right now that's going into its second reading, which allows the Parliament to strip a royal of their titles. Now, the quid pro quo to this is also that in the bill, the monarch would have the right to strip a peer of his titles. Now, on one hand, this is just like in the movie. This is a bill that all of us would uh, like to see put through because there was a lot of thought the whole time, strip Harry and Meghan of their titles, strip Andrew of their titles. Oh, well, the Queen can't do it. The Parliament has to do something like that, and she simply approves, and then it looks like she's keeping her hands clean. But what would make the Parliament do this? And some people have used that as reasoning as to why nothing's been done so far. In fact, letters patent or just him simply declaring the monarch can do anything he wants. They can amend laws, they can amend rules. Royal protocol is only protocol as the monarch sees fit, honest to God. They can do whatever they want. So we've got a case where we know Charles has tried to be real conciliatory with Harry and Meghan, kind of give them everything they want at, you know, because he's the dad, but and perhaps sympathizes with their position or at least may have at the beginning, but they're causing so much trouble that it's affecting Charles and it's affecting his judgment. He doesn't know what to do. Now they're pushing for more, and it's even more important that Charles act decisively, strip them of their titles, settle the questions of birthright and line of succession, and the titles. The counselor of state, are Harry in or out? You've got to make some decisive action. Um, this is what people are looking for, and it is becoming a wedge issue. And Harry and Meghan know this, and they, I don't know what they've got on the royal family, but I'll tell you, it could be something enough to keep them scared, to keep them, even with all their antics, try to just, keep them calm, you know, try to control them. It's not working. You can't control people like Harry and Meghan. So we've got the same kind of situation. We've got you know, the initial groundswell of support for Charles, even amidst all this controversy, which now that he is king, everybody's looking. I mean, these questions are in the papers, they're in the media every day surrounding Harry and Meghan, surrounding their kids, surrounding Andrew. People want answers and they want decisive action. You've got an active bill in the British Parliament so that should they choose to, they could strip them of the titles and save Charles perhaps the embarrassment. If Charles is not happy with that decision, he could turn around and oust some of the peers from the House of Lords, the ones he dislikes. So, what have you got on your hands then? You got public disapproval and governmental chaos, which could lead to a constitutional catastrophe where William just has to step in. Is it life imitating art? Is it just one of those spooky things or just of no consequence at all? But these questions are what are going to determine just how long Charles lasts as king. I give it 2 years. Let's see what happens. Like, subscribe, hit the alert button. Hope you enjoyed this. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you think. And we'll see you in the next one.